guys, it's Michael and welcome back to Let's Make Maps, episode 5. We're going to call this episode 5, but let's talk about that. So last episode we worked on our town map here and we did some wall stuff. And I said during that discussion that I would show, well, what happens if you want to make more detailed walls. And I didn't do it. Totally forgot. I got kind of busy anyway. So what I'm thinking is that this episode is going to look at that, and I considered calling it, episode 4A or something like that, but I decided against it because I think this stands on its own. Let's make a, why am I on web? I don't know. Let's, I don't care how big this is, it doesn't really matter. We just want a new image. I'm going to leave this image up though, and we may do something with it if we get a chance. But let's do some stuff here in this image. And what can we do? Well, what I'd like to do is create just a kind of layer for us to build on top of. So let's take this and put a texture on it. See what texture, I don't know. Probably not that one. Just something groundish will be fine, I think. Maybe this, and let's make another layer and fill it and apply a pattern overlay to it. I'm just going to throw on some grass. And then we can delete the background layer, might as well. These layers add up in memory. I mean, it's not that big a deal when you have I don't know how Photoshop compresses this stuff internally, but it does start paging to disk at some point. So you do have to be kind of wary. Once you get like a super big town, rolling, it will chew up memory. So you might want to think about collapsing layers and doing some other stuff. I will close that, in fact. So on this layer here, I'm just going to do a layer mask, and I'm going to fill it with black, and then we're going to get our brush tool, and we're just going to paint in here, and I'm going to paint in here with something splotchy, I guess. Let's see. My tablet driver died on me the other day, so I had to kind of go and reinstall. That's probably okay, but maybe a little less opaque than that. Maybe something like this. I just want to draw some, some texture in here, just so we're not doing this on a white background, because that's not going to be very interesting to look at. I think that's probably good enough, actually. We don't need that much detail on the thing. If we want to try to see about terrain elevation changes and how that affects stuff, we can do that later. Okay, so I'm going to throw on I'm just going to throw a group in there and drop that stuff in there, and I'll lock it so we don't have to deal with it. And then, you know what, this pop-up taskbar, I love getting it out of my way, but every time you try to reach something at the bottom of the screen, the dang thing comes up and it pops over it. It gets a little annoying sometimes. I like not seeing it all the time, but it's a pain. Okay, so let's make a couple of groups here. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to put in them, but maybe what we'll do is a large wall and a small wall. Could probably do a medium wall as well, but this is worth seeing the differences here. Alright, so small wall, let's do that one first. We could easily go and just draw a line or a box or something like that, but instead of doing that, why don't we do a lasso tool. What I'm going to do is go like this. We're going to end up with stuff over here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it and edit and stroke. And let's see, let's make it 10 wide. And no, let's go a little bit wider than that. That's pretty small. Edit, stroke, maybe 20. Yeah, I think that's fine. And then I'm just going to take the marquee tool and pop part of this back out. We'll have to edit it a little bit more. So that's kind of a good way if you're going to make a river or something like that, is to use that tool. If you want, you can add a border to the thing that you can then delete later. If you're going to be doing a lot of that stuff, it might be easier than coming in here and editing stuff out later on. But that is entirely up to you. That's not going to work. That's going to be funky. Let me get the polygonal lasso tool instead. See if we can make that a little more precise. It still tapers, unfortunately. I think that probably had to do with turning a corner up there. Okay. I mean, obviously you're going to get the most precise effects if you draw this stuff yourself. Okay, now for our large wall, let's do something a little different. Let's make a... So we're going to be zoomed into this, right? Essentially, that's the effect we're going for here. And in fact, let me do one thing. Okay, I'm going to create a new layer on top up here, all the way to the top, not in the wall layer. There we go. And I'm going to. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get my brush and just get a fairly large brush over here, and I'm just going to hold down the shift key and draw, except I want it to be not opaque, and I'd want it to not be on airbrush, and I think I had this on airbrush, and I think that's why it looks so derpy actually. There we go. We're just going to put that there so that we can see that we're talking about two separate items here. And for the large wall, may not have left myself quite enough room, but I think we'll do all right. I'm just gonna kind of pop down some lines here. And how do I want to? No, I don't want to do that. I do hate when this thing auto completes for you before you're ready for it to. And I don't know what criteria it chooses to do that under. It often seems quite random to me. Okay, let's try this. I'm not sure if we're going to have room for it, but let's try 40. Yeah, I think we can work with that. Could probably go bigger, actually. Where's my history? Forget which one is history. Let's delete that stroke and do it bigger. Stroke 60. Pretty big, but that's okay. So I'm going to delete this back out in roughly the right shape. Doesn't matter if it's not perfect. You don't know how hard it is for me to say that to myself, by the way. So when I say it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, I really do mean it, even though because I don't want to say that. I don't want to believe that, but it is true. And you have to believe it's true. Otherwise, you're going to make yourself nuts. So just try to make it true. Even if you've got, your regular run-of-the-mill OCD, whatever. Just try to make yourself believe that it is true. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes, something can't stand, but something like that, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I've taken and just filled a circle. We'll use this as a tower. And then I think what I'll do down here at the bottom, just so we can have some variety, is let's throw on a... do I want to do these separately or together? I think we can do them together. That'll be all right. I'm going to throw in like a big box tower, and we can separate that out if we need to later on. But what this will be is like maybe there's a gate down here or something. We don't know what it is. We don't even have to care what it is. All we need to know is the part that we're working on. So there's that. And then why don't we do something similar with this one? But obviously they're going to be smaller So we need to go here, put a new layer in for the towers, drop those in. Now I'm going to, instead of deselecting that and making a new one, I'm going to get my pointer tool, V. What is this called? Can we highlight it and see what it is? No, we can't apparently, and I'm just going to drag it, Alt drag it to copy. I'm going to put it over here like that. It's probably not the best place in the world to put it. In fact, why don't we rotate this just a little bit? See if we can get this to be like maybe in here. And I'll drag that one over. Now deselect that, and now I'll pick this one and get rid of it. And let's make a couple of round towers as well. I'm holding down the shift key to keep these from being ellipses. If you guys know these shortcuts, you know, forgive me. There are people who don't, so I'm just trying to make it easy for the people who don't get it, who don't know yet. And now I see this, I realize what I've done with this wall, that I've used the airbrush tool on it, and it looks really bad to me. So this is one of those things where I say, no, that can't stand, and we'll redo that. Sorry, had to be done. Lasso tool? Yeah, I guess so. I'm going to get rid of anti-alias just in case. I don't know that it does anything in this with a stroke, but it might. And I'm just going to try to recreate what I had there. Oop. That's not going to work real well. There we go. We will stroke this. I think I would do 20. I know it's odd, but I'm going to go with 17. Just knock it down a little bit. Does that look any better? No. No, not really, but that's okay. That's fine. I mean, I think it actually does look slightly better, but not significantly. Probably not worth the extra effort of trying to get it done. Okay. I'm going to cut this out. And here. There we go. Okay. That's it. So let's do some other stuff here. First of all, let me... Oh my god, for real? I thought you could change layer style stuff on it. Let's just do a color overlay on this guy, or actually a pattern overlay. And let's make it something not too obtrusive, but so that we can still see it. There we go. And actually, I think that can go down here into that group. Maybe not behind everything, though. Okay. There we are. We got some stuff going on. So what do we need to do to this now? Well, we need to get some texture on it. And we could do the concrete style texture. Let's just try that. So pattern overlay. I think I had a concrete-like texture here. I think maybe that's what I used on the other. Could do. I say let's do this, and then we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to work with this one for now. And what I'm going to do, though, is I've got over here some new textures. A few that I haven't used, that I didn't use in the other, that I had not loaded into the other map yet. So I've got a few bigger blocks that I didn't really have before, and we can see what we want to use. So I've got some blocks here. Let's just open these up and have a look at them. Whoa, okay, I opened up a bunch. I do have these, which is more like a cobblestone-y thing. But I've got this one, which is very obviously CG up close, unfortunately. We've got blocks, and we've got uneven blocks. Frankly, the blocks and uneven blocks look the same to me. Yeah, they are. That's the same texture. Fine. And we don't need that giant one. So we can take this one here. Let's edit it. Let's define a pattern. I'm not going to name it anything. And then let's do a thing with it. So here I'm going to we're going to call these are going to be our base items here, our base walls and tower tops. And I do want to keep them separated. I don't think we're going to change the overall shape of them, so I'm going to left control click to select this, what's everything in this thumbnail. And then here in this layer I'm going to do fill, and I'm going to do a pattern overlay, and I'm going to use that new block that we just brought in. Okay, and now we need to scale it. How much do we need to scale it? I don't know. I have found that even numbers work better because I think you get less blurring if you're there's certain breakpoints, right? Like 50% will give you less blurriness because there's less interpolation that goes on in there between, you know, trying to figure out how to compress 2 pixels into 1 is easier than trying to figure out how to compress 2.34 into 1. You get less muddiness in the color. So if we do, how does 25 look? Still too big. That's 26 anyway. How about 15? 10? 10 looks pretty clear. I don't know that I like the direction the blocks are going though, unfortunately. So why don't we cancel that instead? I'm going to delete what we've got there. I'm going to remove the selection. I'm just going to fill the whole layer. Aha. So you can run into that problem, right? Is that it anti-alias, so it puts some stuff outside of the actual selection box that didn't get deleted. So there we go. I'm going to fill the whole layer. And now I'm going to do the pattern overlay. So got that guy on there, and I forget what I did now. Was it 10? Maybe it was 10. I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is create a new blank layer underneath it, and then I'm just going to merge this down because this is just a texture. We don't need this to be live now that we've got it to the right scale. So it's fine that it's solid, that it's now not a live texture. I'm okay with that. We can do a lot of different things with this, but let's do this instead, or for now. I'm going to select everything on this layer below, and I'm going to do a layer mask. And now we have this texture here. Well, that doesn't look so hot, does it? Because it's all straight. What could we do about that? Well, we could go in and hand move pieces of the texture around to match the wall, and that is certainly a very good option. Let's see if we can do something else with it first, though. What happens if we just turn down the opacity? It doesn't really work. Nope, it doesn't really work for me. So let's instead, we'll delete this layer mask. And what we're going to do is use this layer 9 here. Let's call it our brick texture. Let's call this our wall base. And let's call this our tower base. And I'm really hoping this is all big enough for you guys to see. If you can't see the individual words, it probably doesn't matter. I will try to read out the settings that I'm making here so that you guys can see, can know what we got going on. Okay, I'm going to select the V tool, why won't you tell me what that is? Move tool, thank you. I don't want to move those. I want to move this texture over out of the way. And what I'm going to do is use the marquee tool, and I'm going to grab a piece of this. Okay, I don't want the circular marquee tool. I would like the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to select a piece of this texture here, and I'm going to copy it. Now we don't have to copy it. We could drag it. Do we want to do that? Yeah, actually, I think I will. I think I will in this case. If you've got a very complex scene, you might want to cut pieces out of this, paste them into a new layer, and work with them there. This isn't that complex a scene. We've got this, and we have plenty of room to store things over here. Sorry about my neighbor's yappy dog, guys. So I've just highlighted that, and now I'm using the move tool to drag it. And now we've got this piece of this texture here. So we can align this however we want, and if we do Control T, we'll get our transform box, and I can do a little bit of shifting of it to get it kind of lined up with that outside wall, and I can drag it into place. Now that's not perfect, but again, doesn't always need to be perfect. I can delete that, and then I can grab this piece of it. Now I use this exact same technique for doing like tile roofs and things like that, and you can get real detailed with what you're doing with it. Oh my God, I cannot believe I got that angle pretty close to right without actually mucking about with it too much. All right, save that down, and now we have a texture that is very close to what we need it to be. Let's do our mask again. And you'll see, I think, that that looks a heck of a lot better than what we had before, where we just had a single texture that was clearly aligned. Now we have a texture that aligns with what we're working with. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to do another thing now. I'm just going to drag this whole layer, Alt-drag this whole layer up here and make a copy of it. And then I'm going to remove the layer mask. And I'm going to marquee, select this little bit here that I made for the wall and delete that. It's still showing through because that's the stuff down here on this layer. And I'm going to use V to kind of pull this over a little bit. Let me just cut off this little guy here. And let's take a piece of this and stick it over the top of this. So I'm just going to grab a chunk of it, doesn't matter how big. Slide it over the top of that, and then I'm going to deselect, pick my marquee tool again, and this piece here doesn't need to be that big. We'll just drag it down here like that, delete it. Now this does take up memory, so we're not going to need it. Let's just delete it, and then I'm going to do something else here too. I'm going to Control A to select all, and then I'm going to do a I'm going to go under Edit. And where the heck is crop? Oh no, it's actually under image. Image crop will delete everything that is outside of your frame. So that image is still sitting over here. If I do, hang on, if I do deselect, use my move tool and move this. Now see there, that's still hanging around off screen. It's taking up memory over there. So we select everything, select image and crop, and make it go. Actually, I think it goes automatically. I'm used to crop on something else. And now I move this. We don't get much. There was that little bit hanging out probably over on the border. We can delete that. Slide these back into place. I mean, it's not going to matter if there's a row of pixels sticking out the outside of the thing, but you know, it's a bit, I don't know. It feels unclean to me, and it certainly takes up more memory than it needs to, so we don't need it to do that. I'm going to enable that layer mask again, and now I'm going to create a layer mask here. I'm going to control-click the thumbnail of the tower base, and I'm going to add a mask right here. That's not what I wanted to do. I want to add a mask. There we go. D, and let's zoom in. Now, I could have certainly done something with this here, made it a different direction or something like that, but I don't know, this wall is regular enough that that doesn't look too bad. I think we can hang with it. If there was a 90-degree bend here, you might want to do something else with it, pick which direction it faces or something, but I think this is okay. Now it still doesn't look real good though, unfortunately. Let's do our what we learned to do last time, which is our little walls, ledges around the edge of the thing. So let's start with the towers. I'm going to control click the, I'm not going to control click that one. I'm going to control click the base, and I'm going to create a new layer, and we're going to fill that. And this touch thing on the controls is really making me nuts. Okay. We're going to edit or select, modify, contract, and let's do, let's see, this was what, 60 wide? Let's try 10 and see what that does for us. It might be a little bit too big, but I think it's okay. We can be exaggerated. That's fine. Okay, like that. I think that's good enough. Nicely enough, I thought a problem was going to arise that I would have to deal with, but I didn't, is that it did not contract in from the edge of the screen. That's actually really nice. I thought it did do that. I know that there are some edge of screen problems with a lot of things like drop shadows and stuff. But yeah, actually we were in the clear there. That's good. Okay, so now we've got a tower wall layer over here that we can use for things. We might not get to the small walls today. I'm looking and it's 25 minutes in already. Because this brick texture is the exact same size as the one down below, since it already covers all of this and this top thing is the same size, we can drag this up top here. And we can select, we can clear the layer mask. I'll just delete it. We can select this tower wall thing here. And we can make a new mask. Okay. So in effect, these things here are all the black layers that I've created previously are all just selection layers. They're what we use to select things at this point. And we may want to leave them that way. Probably do. In general, if you create a selection layer, you don't want to modify it. You want to kind of leave a copy of it for yourself. But I am going to drag copy that, Alt and click it and pull it up to create a new layer. And let's call this the shadow layer. I'm going to just say S tower wall on tower. I know that seems like a really long name, but later on when you start dealing with super complex shadows, you are going to deal with this a lot. I mean, you're going to start just having to go, okay, well, which part of the thing is this falling on? Tower wall on tall treetops, that kind of thing. When you've got two layers of trees and each of those have a shadow, and some of those have shadows falling on the ground, and some of them have shadows falling on medium buildings and tall buildings. You're going to have layers for each of those things, and it can get a little complex, so you're going to have to find a way to manage it. And naming and positioning in the stack is the only way I've ever really found to do that. So you're going to want to, just something to be aware of, I guess. Let's make ourselves a light direction. That's a really poor light direction line. Let's see if we can do it a little bit better than that. Okay. How is that for a sun icon? Yeah, it works for me. I never claimed artistry, guys. Excuse me for the coughing. Allergies still. Even this late in the year, I'm still having some problems with allergies, and they've been really bugging me the last few days. Okay, I'm going to shift this over a little bit. How much over? Maybe that much. Maybe down just that much. I believe that a shift arrow will click you over 10 pixels, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that is how it does it. I'm kind of okay with that. That looks about right to me. Problem is, we don't have any detail up here yet. We've done exactly the same thing we did last time, and maybe we want to do a little bit more. So let's think about that for a minute before we nail this down. Do we want to do a little bit more here? And I think the answer is, that's a rhetorical question. The answer is yes. So let's do something a little bit more. What we're going to do is make the little, I don't know what the heck they're called. I'm going to call them crenellations, right? Where you've got a kind of sawtooth, or not sawtooth, what's that called? A square wave function going on top. Bits that go up. You can stand here, your waist up, you're exposed. Behind the little blocks, maybe you've got an arrow slit that you can shoot through and keep protected, etc. So, I mean, it's a pretty common feature on castle type things. Historically, I don't know what the story is, but you can look it up for sure. So let's do that. How are we going to do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways probably. On this circular one, it's going to be a little different than on the square one. A little bit harder, in fact. So let's we're going to skip our shadow layer now. We're going to copy this, and let's call this tower wall. I'm going to call it crenellation. Given that I'm doing a series on medieval engineers and I'm building some walls and stuff, I probably should learn what this means. But I believe crenellations is the word for it, so we'll go with that for now. Now, what we've got here. Let's give this a different layer style so we can see it. Let's give it a color overlay. Turn that on. Now I've just turned off the layer that's on top of it. So here's our layer. Here's what it really looks like. This is going to be basically another selection layer. So let's figure out how we're going to deal with this. Kind of want to zoom in a little bit. So let's go to 400. Let's work with this one first. This is going to be the easiest one. We've got kind of a lot of ways we can do this. One of the best ways I've found is rather than trying to select it and eyeball it and do all this stuff is I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to use the marquee tool and I'm just going to create something that I think is about the right size and then I'm going to fill that. Okay, so now we've got a little block that we can move around. What we can do with that little block is click in the thumbnail over here to select it. So if we make lots of copies of this little block, in the place that we want to subtract from this layer, we can create a selection mask that will let us chop these crenellations out of a layer. So what we'll end up with is the tower itself, the tower wall, which is a ring around the tower. Hopefully you guys can see this in the camera. And then we'll end up with basically a dotted line around the edge of the tower that's going to represent the crenellation. So we'll have 3 layers of those. Each of those layers are going to have their own layer style, and they're going to generate a shadow on the layers beneath them, right? And so that's what's going to give us our sort of pseudo 3D effect looking at it from above. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if it will. Okay, I did not want to do that. What I want to do is grab the V tool, the move tool, and I'm going to alt drag this little guy around here to create a new one. Now if you want to be precise, we can do it a different way. I can, instead of actually using the V tool, I can just hold the Alt key and I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to hit the right arrow. Now as long as you don't let go, this is still a live, or I could be lying. I was going to say that it was a live separate piece that wouldn't actually leave copies of itself. Why isn't it? Does it only work with Shift down? Let's try that again. Let me select this. Alt Shift right arrow. No. Now apparently I'm forgetting how to do something because I thought that could stay live, but I guess not. So that's fine then. We're going to alt drag it and eyeball it. But what we can do though is we can I can deselect that. I can reselect it by doing this. Get my move tool again and drag it again. And now we've got a bigger piece that we know that this space is the same size as this space. This space we're going to have to eyeball, which, you know, that looks like I've got it about right there, I think. Another thing you can do is alt drag these again, and you can just kind of layer it over the top of the other one like that. Now I probably misplaced it by a pixel or two, but let's go back to that. It's not, doesn't have to be a perfect thing. And also this doesn't line up exactly in the middle. You know, back to maybe it doesn't have to be perfect. Does our distribution work on this? I wonder. Distribute horizontal centers. I don't know if that would work or not. I don't know if it would treat these as individual pieces or not. That might be worth checking into. But We're not going to do that now. I'm going to drag that again, and I'm going to do Control T to transform it, and I'm going to drag it down here. Let's try to keep this little space on the corner here roughly equivalent on the top and on this side and this side. And then I'll drag another one back to here. Maybe move that down just a bit. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, so this is our selection layer. We don't really need it to live for very long, to be honest about it. We can click it to select it, and we can click the tower wall crenellations layer and delete it just like that. Right? So let's see. Let's turn off the color overlay. Actually, I guess we can just turn off the entire layer effects. Where's delete layer effects? Isn't there a delete layer effects? Just disable. Whatever, I don't care. Okay, let me try to figure this out again now. Where are we? There's the tower wall. There's the tower wall crenellations. This is the selection layer. Let me make that clear. And then we have our brick. Okay, this is the little wall around the top. So let's make another layer up here. And I think what we're going to do is just copy this layer one more time. And I'm going to delete the layer mask. And I'm going to select the tower wall crenellation layer. I'm sorry, control click the thumbnail of the tower wall crenellation layer. And then on the brick text copy layer, which is now our new real crenellation layer, I'm going to add a layer mask. So now what we should have, if we turn off the things that we can see, there we go. So we have a textured version of that little selection layer. Turn all that back on, and now what we can do is make a shadow. So let's do that. Let's start with the crenellation layer, and we're going to pick our tower wall crenellation selection layer. Jeez, this is getting a little bit, I swear to God there's a clear layer style. There is a clear layer style, but I don't have access to it because I had the layer style invisible. So you can't clear it unless it's visible. Okay, seems legit. Okay, we made a new layer beneath our crenellation, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to paint it black. Press D. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Maybe not that much. Zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to shift left. Am I? No, I need to pick the move tool. Okay, we're probably not going to want to do this just yet. I guess we're going to want to take care of the circular one. Well, let's take care of the circular one then. So we got a selection layer here already. We can use this again. Let me zoom into 400. I guess this is going to be a really long video, and we're not going to get through it all. That's fine. We got all year, don't we? So I'm going to select a strip that goes all the way through this layer here. And I'm going to turn this layer on so that we can see it. Yep. Note this looks funny because there's the wall layer is actually overlapping it. So let's keep that in mind and turn this stuff off. And we'll fill that. All right, so what we're going to do with this? Well, we're going to duplicate it. But rather than, you know what, rather than duplicate it within the same layer, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy it to a new layer. So I just selected it, Control C, Control V, and we're going to rotate it here. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. I'm just holding the Shift key to make sure I get it to 90 degrees. And then I'm going to do it again. So Control Copy, V. I don't like what that did. So I'm going to Alt drag on the layer over here so it stays in the same spot so I don't have to realign it. And then I'm going to drag it to 45 degrees. Now, we probably don't want to rotate this one again, and the reason we don't want to rotate this one again is because see how it's already gotten fuzzy and anti-aliased on its transition here? It's going to do that again even more the next time. So let's go back to our original, and let's copy that. Okay? So I just alt-dragged it again. You can do Control-T to do this with it. Now, I think we're seeing now that we're going to end up with a really wide section here if we do it this way. If we try to slip another one in between, it's going to be too small. So I don't think this angle is going to work for us. So let's delete it. I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to go back to this vertical one here, and I'm going to alt-drag it. And let's transform it, but let's do it numerically. So this is 0 degrees. This is 90 degrees. I don't know what it thinks it is, but yeah, it looks like it's 0. This is 90 degrees. So what we need is to fit in two things in here. We're going to have to divide 90 degrees by 3, which is easy enough. That's only 30. So if we make this be 30 degrees, we should be at an angle that is 1/3 of the space, and that space there looks much better. So let's let's enter to clear that. Let me copy it one more time and do Control-T, and let's make the angle be 60. Enter a couple of times to get it to take, and I think we're good there. That looks about right to me. So these are the two layers that we just made. I'm going to alt-drag them to copy those. And then I'm going to, keeping both of them selected, I'm going to Control-T, and I'm going to right-click, and what I'm going to do is do flip horizontal, and that's going to copy them for us. So now we have all the way around, every 30 degrees, we have a little swath that we're going to be taking out. Let's merge all of this back into the selection layer. How does this work? Honestly, I forget how merge down works. I think it only works if you have one layer selected. So I merged all those, and then I merged them down to the selection layer. So now they're all part of the same thing. All right, that's good. That's our regular wall, so we don't want to mess with that. What we want is this selection layer right here. We're going to control-click the selection layer, and now we've got our little bits here, and we're going to have the actual, I guess this is the selection subtraction layer. This is the actual selection layer. We're going to just hit the delete key. We don't need to preserve that information, I don't think. You could certainly do it with a layer mask, I believe, but I don't think we need to do that. And then up here, I'm going to delete the layer mask, and I'm going to click this selection layer right here, and I'm going to add a new layer mask. And now what we have is, I believe, the proper thing. Let's turn, how can we figure this out? If I turn all these off, we should be able to see. There we go. So those are the things we wanted selected. And my goodness, I need to get better at labeling these things because I'm a little bit lost, to be honest with you. Okay, anyway, we can take this thing here that is now our selection layer. Let's call it crenellation selection layer. I probably misspelled that. Okay, and I'm just going to copy that. And I'm just going to call it shadow. Honestly, you'd probably want to get a little more detailed with that, but I'm going to call it shadow. And I'm going to use the V tool, and I'm going to shift it. Probably not shift it, because now we've got like a little bit more of an issue. We're probably going to have to do some custom shadow work here. In fact, I know we are. So I'm going to move it to kind of the position I think it ought to be in, a little more left than down. I think that's okay. It's probably not making a lot of visual sense to you guys right now, but it's okay. It's not a horrible thing. You'll figure it out. Okay. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to take this layer here and I'm going to select the tower base layer, and I'm going to Control-Shift-I, and I'm going to delete everything that falls outside of the tower base. Actually, you know what? We're not going to do that yet, and the reason we're not going to do that yet is because we're going to blur this layer eventually, so we can't do that just yet. Because it would blur it beyond the boundaries. If we cut it nice and clean and then later on we blur it, it's going to spread beyond the boundaries, and we probably don't want that. So let's leave it for now. We'll just call it shadow. And we're actually going to call it crenellation shadow, or C shadow maybe, just so I don't have to type all that. And I'm going to drag this C shadow down on top of, just above the this base layer of the wall. So now all we're showing it on is this base layer of the wall. So you notice the ring here is actually covering this up. If I turn this one back on, you can see that this stuff is on top of the ring, but there's a portion of it now that's below the ring. And the reason we're going to do that will become pretty clear soon, I think. Possibly. It may not matter, and we're going to find that out right now. So if I... What is this? I need to control click that to see. Okay, that is our... We don't need this anymore. I'm going to get rid of it, just so it's not confusing. This is our tower wall layer right here. We're going to make a shadow out of this guy. So let's... Oh my god, I've got so many layers here that I need to sort out. I believe these layers are actually duplicates. They are precisely duplicates. No, they're not. No, they're not. But I've got that handled up there with the crenellation selection layer. So I'm going to delete this. Oops. Don't want to have any. Oh my gosh. Stop fat fingering the keys over here. Okay, I'm going to delete that layer so that it's not confusing. That is our actual tower wall with texture layer. Or not with texture layer. This is our actual tower wall selection layer. This is our tower wall with brick texture layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this tower wall layer and we're going to drag it. This is going to become our shadow for the wall itself. And what we're going to do with that shadow for the wall is we're going to move it over a little bit. So I moved it over 6 and down 3. Now that seems pretty reasonable to me. But you notice a problem, right? It basically moved it the same amount that we moved the crenellation shadows that are falling onto the floor. Essentially the same amount. That's probably not a good idea because the crenellations are actually taller than this wall itself. So we either need to move it back or we need to move the crenellation layer further. I'm going to move it back a little bit. I moved it 2 right and 1 up, but I'm going to move this one 3. Yeah, okay, 3 left and I think 2 down is what I just did there. Now we can see both the shadow of the wall and the shadow of the crenellations on the floor. And I think that's probably okay. The real problem here is that what we don't have is a shadow line going up to. If you look, this is really hard to see, by the way. Can we do a layer style in here that's a stroke? We can. Okay, good. Let me just do this so that we can see what the heck is going on here. I'm going to put a red stroke around that. Did that work? It did not work. I'm going to put a red stroke around that one, and I'm going to put a green stroke around this one. And hopefully this is all going to be easier to see what's falling on where now. So see this block here, right? It sticks up above the wall that's highlighted in green. It should be connected, its shadow should be connected from this corner to this corner here. Same thing with here. All of these shadows should be connected. That's going to take us hand drawing in some stuff, and we can do that just like we did before. Now, the ones on the floor are connected as well. So this corner here should be connected to that corner. So we're going to have to hand draw in some additional shadow here for each of these guys. And that's just how it goes. There's not much we can do about that. Here, this corner connects to this corner. We should not have a little bit of a gap here. We're going to have to connect that up. This one's probably okay. It looks, you know, our shadow lines are more or less tangent with what's going on here. But this one, we're going to have to do the same thing. So that's going to require a little bit of work. And unfortunately, we're already at 50 minutes, so I don't think we're going to get to do that work in this episode. I think we're going to have to come back to this. I didn't realize it was going to be so long to do. I honestly thought we'd be able to get through both walls and maybe even look at the town a little bit today, but we're not going to. So I'm going to call it here, and what I will try to do is record another episode as soon as possible. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe tonight if I have time. I've not been feeling all that great today, but I'll see if I can manage to eke out another one of these guys today, and hopefully we can finish this up, at least this part of it, so that it'll be easier to see. But hopefully you can see where we're going with this. I know it was probably a little cryptic with all the layer creation and selection layers, and it is. I mean, it gets complex, right? But it yields a result that I think is probably worth it. So, you know, you have to decide how much complexity do you want to deal with versus how much realism do you want to have. And that is it, guys, and thanks very much for joining me. I really appreciate all of the support for this series. If you can give me a like and let me know that I'm doing a good job, or comment on what you want to see. I do want to start already asking, even though we've got a lot to go on the town map, what map do you guys want to see next? I mean, do you want to see, you know, what genre? So fantasy, sci-fi, whatever, modern. And then what type of map? You want a regional map? You want a planet map? You want an encounter map that's close up and extremely realistic? I don't know. Make me an offer. What do I want? What do you want me to make? If you don't give me any guidance, I'll just do what I want to do. But I'd love to do what you guys want me to do. So just let me know. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.